Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Sessions. And it is me, your host, Soul, and with me today I have the invincible Vince Valor. How are you doing, Vince?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here, pal. So first of all, for our viewers who are not familiar with yourselves, just introduce yourself. Who is Vince Valor?
Vince Valor is an independent professional wrestler based out of Niagara Falls, New York. I've been wrestling for 12 years now.
Oh, not bad, mate. Well, in those 12 years, you feel like, you must have seen the business grow from completely different, because even just the past year, the business is completely different. What's one thing, you've looked at and been like, whoa, that's kind of a surprising change within this last 12 years?
A lot has changed with the business, and I think it's important for wrestlers and for promoters and anybody else involved in wrestling, even fans, to adapt with the business. The business is constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. And like I had noticed that, like, promoters especially, a lot of them aren't willing to adapt to those changes. They're very stuck in their ways, stuck in their old times. So it's important to evolve and adapt as things go on.
Mm-hmm.
This business is constantly changing.
Yeah, of course. And let's move from promoters to fans, because we see a lot of fans that are in love with the Attitude Era, specifically in WWE. Do you think fans should really adapt with the times as well and not focus on the past? Of course, we do love the past, but sometimes we've got to move on.
Yeah, I mean, myself included, I love the old times. I love what I grew up in. Sorry, my cat's going to get himself over here. No, like I'm an old wrestling fan. I love what old wrestling used to be, but I'm also a fan of what it's becoming. So, I mean, it's important for fans to appreciate that as well. Like all these companies, you look at WWE, AEW, anything, they're all putting on the best show possible to please their audience. So, I mean, it's important for fans to appreciate that.
Of course. Let's speak about Empire State Wrestling, which you are very familiar with yourself. You held the tag team championships for over 400 days. And those long championship reigns, do you feel like they can be a lot of pressure on you, or do you feel the more the reign goes on, you get more comfortable into it?
Anytime you're trusted with a championship, it is a lot of pressure. I mean, you hold yourself to a much higher level, and especially being a tag team champion for as long as I was, like, you're seen as the measuring stick in the tag team division. So it is a high pressure situation. But like around the time that I was tag team champion for ESW, I was holding two other championships in other companies and other promotions too. So I mean, it was a lot to juggle all at once. But like I feel like I live up to the pressure. I've handled that well. I'm able to balance it and bring myself up to the next level that fans are expecting of me as a champion.
That's great. And is there a particular story or highlight from those 400 days that you look back on with a great smile?
I mean, for as much as I don't like to be seen in that way, I've always been seen as a tag team wrestler. So it was good for me to, when I started tagging with James Seg as the ESW Tag Team Champions, he was on quite a bit of losing streaks. I feel like him being alongside me, it helped build his confidence. He's a much better wrestler now for it. I have more confidence in myself that I'm able to work in the tag team as well as a singles wrestler. He's doing his thing now. I'm doing mine. Currently, I hold the Ilio DiPaolo Memorial Cup for ESW. Mm-hmm. So I have that until I decide to cash in for a heavyweight championship match. So it's another high-pressure situation to be in.
Yeah, let's speak about actually that cup when you won that cup. You were 6-0 undefeated. How did that feel, in the ring holding that cup as well and doing the celebratory drinking from the cup as well afterwards?
Yeah. It wasn't an easy match. I mean, I'm in there with some of the best in the world. It was myself, Bill Collier, Matthew Raywoldt, Josh Alexander, Matthew Justice, and Facade. So the best of the best as far as the independent wrestling in this country. But it meant so much because I know what that Memorial Cup means to ESW as well as professional wrestling, to be able to hold that and celebrate with it and bring back an old tradition of drinking out of the cup. I mean, it meant so much to me, and then to be able to carry it and make it what it means right now, it means a lot to me.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. And going back to tag team wrestling, we had a previous tag team wrestler, Blanco Loco of Level X, on, and I always like to ask tag team guys this question: how did they feel about former WWE wrestler Adam Scherr, Braun Strowman, winning a tag team championship with wee little laddie at WrestleMania?
It's weird, but it's one of those things where the business is constantly evolving. You got to do what's for WB. They're so geared towards entertainment, and for that, I mean, we're talking about right now. It was an entertaining moment that everybody remembers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for what people hate it, is memorable. We're still talking about it to this day as well. Where I saw you was on AW Dark with your match against John Silver. Talk about the AW experience, as we've had multiple people who have talked about the AW, and there's a lot of it's favorable and great. I just wanted to get your opinion on it as well.
It was such a great experience, and like I hope to go back soon with it. So I'm somebody that's done extra work for WWE and AEW, and they're both just such life-changing experiences. I had the opportunity to wrestle, and I was expecting a singles match going into it. I was expecting, all right, hang out, hope for an opportunity, and hopefully something comes up. So to be able to be selected for a singles match that night it was an honor for me. I mean, I wasn't so much focused on, like, in the moment, I wasn't so much focused on the match. Like, I've done this hundreds of thousands of times. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, and so it kind of takes you out of the moment of like, all right, I'm not so much focused on the match as most I'm focused on being in that moment, like looking around, seeing that many people, like wrestling for AEW. I was like, this is a dream come true. It's an honor to be here.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. As well, -1 wasn't in the ringside area as well. How does it working in the ring, but knowing there's like someone at the side as well, a kid as well, does that put extra pressure on?
Not so much, because I'm familiar with who his father was. He comes from Rochester, New York. I'm a wrestler out of the Buffalo area. So, I mean, he and I have crossed paths. I learned a lot from him coming up. So, I mean, I already knew, like, I knew what -1 meant to AEW, like, going into that experience. I mean, it's awesome to be backstage and see how everybody embraces him well and makes him feel like family there. It's really awesome to see.
No, that's great. And you've mentioned that you've crossed paths with Brodie Lee in the past as well. Is there a particular memory that comes to mind for you?
He was one of the first people I met when I started wrestling. One of my very first events was in Rochester, New York, and he was in the locker room then. And I would see him here and there because, like, when I was like starting to wrestle, he was already on his way up. Like, he was very close to being signed to WWE. So we didn't see him too much around those times. But he came back to a training school in Buffalo, New York. I want to say it was like 2018. That was the last I saw him and spoke to him. But he spent hours at that school and teaching all the young wrestlers there. So it was awesome for everybody to be able to learn from him.
No, yeah, absolutely great. You speak about teaching school as well, seeing that you've been attending classes done by The Blade and Jay Lethal as well. Just wondering, from those two individuals, what have you learned from them, and what's the teaching experience like from them as well?
I learned so much from guys like that because they're at such a different level. Like, I try to ask, like, what's the difference between an independent wrestling level in terms of wrestling on TV for a WWE, AEW, Ring of Honor, whatever it may be, because that's always the dream. It's always the goal, is to make it to that level. So it's good to learn from their experiences, and what it took for them to get there. So the Blade, he's been so instrumental in my career. I owe a lot to him. He was the one that helped me get into the AEW Darks. I mean, any chance I get to learn from him and be around him, it's always a great learning experience. Like, I used to train with him regularly in Buffalo. Jay Lethal, he actually came into we had him for the ESW show the following day. So he came into the school that I'm the head trainer at right now. He came there the night before to teach a lot of the new students. So it was great to have him there too.
No, wow, not bad. You speak about being a head trainer as well. We've had a previous trainer, Bo Crockett, on as well. And you're speaking about the most important thing with wrestling training is to understand people's roles, high flyers or brawlers. Would you agree with that, or do you feel like there's another way to take it?
There's many ways to approach training, and I'm kind of learning as I go with that, because I never quite saw myself in a trainer role until it actually happened, and it's a weird long story of like how I fell into this role, but it's teaching me so much. It's giving me new purpose in wrestling, to where I'm not so much looking out for myself as much as I'm looking out for my students. Like, my best years are behind me. I keep telling myself that, but I'm not going anywhere in wrestling until I know that my students are in a good place. Mm-hmm. So it's good to be able to understand that and like get new students along the way. Like, the more things grow, the more everybody's going to be willing to learn. But like, I like to provide them with these experiences, like to have Jay Lethal there or anybody else that might come along, because I'm 12 years in and I still do all these seminars and camps. You never stop learning. I mean, this is constantly evolving. You always got to learn. You always got to stay fresh. You got to stay relevant with things. I mean, you never stop learning. And I try to teach my students that.
Yeah, of course. It's like they say, every day is a school day.
Yeah.
So with wrestling training, is there a particular, recruit that you saw that was like, oh, I see talent in them. I can definitely take them along in business in a long way. Was there anyone that you saw like that?
Yeah, it's like so like that's kind of like currently where I'm at with this like now. Like so like I'll reach out, I'll get my bookings, I'll be on the road, and I also like I said, I don't look out for myself, I look out for my students. Like the bookings I take, I like to know that okay, maybe not right away, but down the road it's a potential opportunity for my students to get experience. They're also getting their feet wet. It's great to see that. But the four main ones I bring along with me, Max Cannon, Thomas Kennedy, Darren Crow, Matt McCoy, they're all working very hard to get where they're at, and like they're only getting better. They're learning. They're quick learners. Like they're easily coachable. It's great to have them along for the ride. I mean, otherwise I'd be doing these trips by myself most times. So it's good to have a carload. It's good to bring them along, introduce them to new people, get them new exposure. It's great for them.
Oh yeah, great. And speaking about traveling across obviously the country, it's a very draining thing as well. And obviously you're far away from home. How do you bear with that? Traveling all the time and not being away from home as much.
So like the longer I've done this, like I've tried to limit my traveling, as crazy as that might be. I used to travel as far like 10-hour, 12-hour trips. I've tried to limit that down just because it can be so exhausting, especially when you're either traveling by yourself or traveling with 2 to 3 people who are falling asleep on the trip. I mean, it's tough, but like I'm not traveling as far as I used to, but I'm still doing enough to fill my weekends, still be happy, still be wrestling as often as I can, and still make money. I mean, I'm at a point where I'm not losing money in wrestling anymore. Like it's all profitable, and like I see it as quality over quantity. Like I could wrestle just about anywhere, but I want to make sure it's for quality companies, quality promoters, quality fans, things like that.
Yeah, of course. You speak about quality promoters. Is there one thing in a promoter that you look at and respect, or is there one thing that you look at and are a bit weary of and think,
trust is a big thing. There's got to be that mutual trust between talent and promoter. If you can't trust the promoter and the promoter can't trust the talent, there's no working relationship there.
Yeah, of course, I absolutely agree with that. Obviously, you are a cup winner as well, which you just previously mentioned. I was wondering your thoughts on the Owen Hart tradition that was on at AEW at the moment. What's your thoughts on it?
It's so awesome to see them honor Owen. Everything that led up into that, like it's been such a constant battle over the years for anybody to really, for WWE especially, to really like talk about or mention Owen. They've gone through all those legal battles and everything like that. So to see AEW kind of like find their way of honoring him with that tournament, it was awesome to see it all come together.
Yeah, no, it was great to see. Obviously, you mentioned before that you've been in WWE as well. I was wondering, what's the one thing you could, like, comparing the backstage environments, what's the one thing that comes out to mind that's completely different between AEW and WWE?
I feel that AEW is a lot more relaxed. And I don't mean that in a bad way towards WWE. I feel like for WWE, you're kind of a fly on the wall there. Like if they need you, they'll find you. It's the same way for AEW. But I mean, when you get to AEW, it's a lot more geared towards, okay, like I've come across these guys a lot on the indies. I mean, I see a lot of my friends there. So you're able to at least have conversations with them and like shoot the breeze with them, and just to so you're not just standing there so robotic in a suit all day. Like you feel more welcome, more at home at AEW. And that's not a dig at WWE by any means. It's awesome to be there. But there's a lot of difference in like the way the locker rooms are presented. Like it's tough to explain unless you really experience it. But there is a big difference.
Mm-hmm. I feel like as well, sometimes fans bash the backstage environment at WWE too much. But obviously WWE is a larger company as well. Do you feel that as well? That sometimes fans are a bit too critical at the backstage environment of WWE?
I feel like anybody that's bashing it hasn't really experienced it for themselves. Like and you see a lot of the wrestlers that leave there that end up being disgruntled, but like they're rightfully so. If they have their issues there, you can't fault them for that. They're the ones that are working there every week. Sometimes you get worn out, especially with their travel schedule. I mean, that's hectic on anybody. Like where AEW seems to be a lot more relaxed with things. I mean, they're still running a professional company the same way WWE is. It just seems like more of a relaxed environment.
Of course. Finally, let's speak upon your time as three-time Lake Erie champion. I just want to touch upon that, and what's your thoughts about being that Lake Erie champion?
So for me, it's a company I no longer work for. We ended on not so great terms, but I had a lot of fun, like building up that title to what it could be. I had a lot of fun matches there, a lot of fun experiences. Most notably, I went in a year-long feud with my brother-in-law, Bill Collier. So he was the one I originally won the Lake Erie Championship from. So we told meaningful stories. We had a meaningful experience there. So it's always great memories to look back on. I wish them the best, but I'm also right now I'm working for the competition down the road, Revenge Pro Wrestling. They're doing great things. They're packing houses. They're quality talent, quality production, everything. They're firing on all cylinders. Revenge Pro Wrestling is doing great things. So I'm happy to call that my home in Erie, Pennsylvania right now.
Well, that's always great to see a new home. And finally, before we end here, Vince, I just want to know, what's the year looking like for you?
Busier than ever. I mean, I constantly look at my calendar. I was like, I never expected to be as busy as I am right now, but I love everything about it. I'm doing great things for the companies I work for, whether it be ESW, Revenge, Excite Pro Wrestling, and not so much for like I said, not so much for myself, but like for the other students too, and not even just mine. So like I wrestle I do student shows at a place in Rochester, New York. I'm bigger than nobody. Like I'll wrestle student shows if it helps them, like to where they see me as a veteran, they come to me for advice. And sometimes I don't see myself that way, but if I can help anybody in any way, I can. So like I'm close with trainers of other schools. You look at somebody like Maddock, the trainer at Flower City Wrestling, or HC Loke at his facility. Fighting Arts Pro Wrestling, I believe it's called. I could be wrong. Sorry, Loke, if I get that wrong. But I look out for Loke students, for Maddox students, the same way I would my own. So it's good to be in a role where they come to me for advice, they come to me for criticism. Like I said, I don't see myself any sort of way, but the fact that they view me that way and I'm able to help them get a little bit further, like that means a lot to me. It's like that keeps me very busy in wrestling.
No, of course, man. Of course. Well, always. It's been a pleasure to have you here, Vince. I wish you all the best with the rest of your year and your day as well. Viewers, obviously, if you want to catch Vince, catch him at Empire State Wrestling as well as on many other promotions he's listed here today. I have been your host, Soul. Everyone, remember, as I say, be kind to one another and have a lovely day. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Vince.
Thank you, man.